Welcome back to Giro3 YouTube channel. In today's video we're having a look at a Daiwa, and I think I've got the cover, a Daiwa, here we are. It is a DR-7500a, which is basically the same as a KR400, a Kempro KR400. Kempro made these for Daiwa, but whatever. So I just want to show you the few of the upgrades that I'm doing to this on the way to getting this up and running. So first things first, I've installed, as I've been doing lately with a lot of these, installing recoil inserts into the base. I basically drill these out because half the time, as you can see, one of these is actually snapped right off. Someone's put the wrong size bolt in because these are actually fixed, sealed. So basically we have to put recoil inserts in that just to make it a bit stronger. So this one has been painted clear with a couple painted silver with a couple of coats of clear. It's been glass bead blasted. This was glass bead blasted internally and externally. The inside was resealed, and the outside was etch primed and painted in the silver, and then had a couple of coats of clear put over it. The top housing is okay. It was a bit rough when it came back from the glass bead blaster, but we can't do a hell of a lot with it because there's so much wording on here. It's going to be really hard to do any other work with it. So I may put recoil inserts in this later on. I'll see how I go. Inside had a bit of electrolysis in here, but it's all gone now, and it was glass bead blast, and then again it was resealed as well. Bottom housing was all glass bead blast. This was polished up again, the track, and painted, etch primed and painted in the silver, and with a couple of coats of clear. The mask clamps are of the older variety, so you have bolts through from one side going through that way, two threads on this side, and as I do with all these, I actually put recoil inserts into these, M8 recoil inserts into these to physically, so they don't seize up. So basically it's a lot better in the whole intents and purposes, and gets all going. So the basic upgrades I do to those. I will be using the normal terminal block with this particular one because I've got a cover which is in reasonable condition. I'm going to try and do some more cleaning up of it, but it's in reasonable condition, so at least we've got a cover for it. So I shall shut down now, and I shall bring all the motor and gearbox parts here next, and we shall go through those. Catch you shortly. Okay, well, I better tilt this down a bit. Okie dokie. Well, here's all the gears, sub-chassis and bits and pieces. I'm just going to take you for a quick run through on the upgrades that I do to get to this point. If you don't know, the normal brake for a KR400 or DR-7500 is on the top. The motor is underneath here, and it lifts up off a cork pad which is here, which has been removed, and that's your braking system here, which means you want to do any work on it, you've got to take this off. Now, as with most of these, over time they are starting to get really bad. Now this is how the gear normally sits in here. As you can see, this is moving around everywhere. This is actually rusted out and has flogged out really badly, and has actually got a fracture in here. Probably can't see it. There's a fracture there and a fracture there, just from years of just wobbling around. So that becomes a bit of a problem over time. So I remove that. There's the actual predecessor to this being done. So basically I put a cork pad on the top of the motor chassis. I then have had a customer of mine made me up some of these brake guards. Here's the later version, which has my name and everything on it, if you can read it. So KD, as in Kempro Daiwa 400 BG brake guard. So that's the newer version, and I have mentioned this before. So this basically just snaps into here, into there like that, and it's screwed from the bottom. These countersunk holes, I really didn't need the countersink because I'll show you why in a second. So basically that means well, since all the gears, and then this gear is here, and this sits on here like that. Since that gear is so close, it's got a cutaway here for the gear, and this guard is here purely because all the gears are here to stop grease getting onto the actual brake. So that's the reason why that is the way it is. So this is how it starts out. I then put the brake pad on after centering everything, and basically then I install these. The assembly, the original gear, well, that's the original gear. This is the original gear here, which has got like a D shape in it. I got my little lathe, and I turn it all down to a small raised section, and this is my new brake disc, all stainless steel, and brushed on one side, and it has the screw holes. And here's a finished version. The plate is actually screwed and glued to the gear, so it's not going anywhere. And then these have been scuffed off a bit here. So basically what I do is, now everything's running in the reverse way around, so we have our top side and our bottom side. This is snaps into there. I've got it so it's just a nice fit. I then drill and I drill a small hole, and then I put these self tappers in, little baby self tappers, and then basically I have to put a 4mm drill through the bottom of this ever so slightly, and about 3mm to accommodate the shaft, the bottom of the shaft. So that's how that goes together. So we end up with this, and that's how it was. So just thought I'd show you that. It gets rid of this and makes everything a bit more compact. And put all that aside now, and we end up with this. So basically, as you can see, the motor is off axis. It lifts up and down when I'm pressing on the bottom here. Still does the same thing. I have to change the original. I think they're just here somewhere. I think they are. Oh, no, they're not. The original versions of the standoffs had to put slightly longer ones in to space it up a bit higher to get everything to sit back how I want it to sit. So basically there we are, and there's our cutaway. On this side you might notice a bit of purple here. That indicates where the wiring side is and where we have the cutaway, so everything is aligned. So that's there. This motor was completely stripped down. The bottom and top housings were glass bead blasts and that have been painted in silver, I think this one was. As you can see, the center of the thing, the motor is in pretty good condition. So, and this was replaced, of course, with one I already had, one I've already made up. So that's the motor. And the motor was rewired as well because the wires were a bit crusty, to say the least. So the top chassis, I drill a hole beside the support for this gear, so I can then direct oil into the very top of the gear, since this was washed and cleaned, and there'll be no oil in there after I put it through the cleaning processes. I've got my raised off pieces for the motor to sit onto. This raises it up just a bit more so we can get the motor to sit and the gear to sit in exactly the right position. So these are 4mm thick bits of aluminium. That is glued there temporarily, and it just bolts through and holds it from the top. This will also be having limit switches put on in this, so I'll be doing that in a little while. The limit switches will go on there, so there'll be 2 limit switches. I'm replacing the top bolts with socket head cap screws for there. What else am I doing? New screws for the limit switches. We have the motor start capacitor, which will be going on the bottom side. I've mentioned this before about these. Being the potentiometer sits on this side, potentiometer sits here normally. Nuts are still on there. And I put my motor start capacitor this way, where Daiwa's had theirs around, so it had all these sharp edges to come over this way. So I've mentioned that before. And the bracket that was in this rotator was actually rusted nearly away. So mine will sit on here and go there underneath this bolt here. This one, as usual, I am affixing the shafts to the bottom plate so they don't move. So basically it's done by, as I mentioned probably before, starting to sound like a broken record. I get a cultures and I put indents in the recess here, and then I press it in to the bottom housing so it can't turn and can't rotate, and then I glue the bottom bushes into place so they don't fall out, and help to stabilize things as well. So the other thing I'll be doing, since that's the new spacer for the 4-stack, this one was only a 3-stack gear, so actually probably can see, we can't see it, I changed the position of the shaft, so this was here and that one was there. You can probably see just here, you can see where the gears have run and I've done a bit of a groove. I polished these shafts up so there's a bit of a groove on this here, because there was only 3 gears, and so I've changed these over. So now I'll swap the shafts over, because now that one over here will be getting covered up by that wide gear, so that would be a lot better, and I'll have a bit of extra grease in there as well. Those are what the indents are. The gears run well. So basically now we have a 4-stack gear, and this will be going onto here, and instead of a 3-stack we're now getting protecting the ring gear, which I didn't bring over, and so we have the next gear goes on. As you can see, it all lines up. There we go, and then the next gear, which is the next one over here. So all these gears just go on, and the whole thing doesn't fall around and flop off and do crazy things. And then because we have a little space over there and a space over there, you can assemble these quite easily when you're doing with just the shafts that are fixed. So I'll be pulling this all down again in a second to visually do the complete build-up. I thought I'd show you what I've done. So up to a 4-stack gear here to protect the ring gear, and I've shown you all the bits and pieces on the shafts being fixed. So basically they push through a little bit further on the bottom now too as well, but they've got a bit of a step at the top. So what I'll do is I'll put this gear back on again, and we'll drop this into position without the motor, of course. And we align the gear, make sure it aligns, it's in there. So there we are, there's the gear in place, there's our first gear, and the spacing just looking straight through. Yeah, light just shining straight through is really good. So there we go, so then we'll move forward. I shall go away and I shall be installing limit switches and bits and pieces, and getting this all put together. They're basically the upgrades that I'm doing to these rotators, the KR400 and this DR-7500. So basically there we go. So that's one of the mods that I've been doing. Other than putting a 4-stack here, I'll put my KD38 solid gear in here, but I didn't do it in this one, trying to keep the price down on this one a bit. So there we go. So and the controller for this will be coming up soon too as well. It is a DC-7001 controller. So there we go, which has been upgraded, of course, as I do. So there we go. Okay, we shall go away. We shall get some more stuff done, and we shall be back. Okay, I have assembled everything. Motorcycle capacitors on, potentiometers on, motors installed. All the gearing is in and greased. All the pot gear, drive gear and everything is in. And you look through there, you can see the brake guard. All the gears. Limit switches are on as well. I've used socket head cap screws to mount the motor. So since the motor sits up higher here, whoops, that one's showing. Since the motor sits up higher here, I need to use longer screws than the ones in it. I probably didn't mention before, I had to replace these to get everything to sit in the right position. The motor chassis normally sits down pretty hard on the motor, so I had to raise up to 15 or 16 mil. So the next thing I'm going to do is limit switches are working. Final alignment will be done later on. I've done a pre-alignment. As you can see, there's a bit of a mark here on the for a halfway point for my potentiometer and the gearing and everything. So the next thing I've got to do is do the wiring. So we shall be back. Rightio. It is all wired. There we go, limit switches are in, all the wiring's done, it's all tied off, the motor's wired in, socket terminal block I should say, is all wired. And you might notice a yellow wire here. I always wire this in because I already got it in here. It's the limit return light. It doesn't get used, but I wire it in just because it's there. So, and I always wire it in up here because the wire is already, this is the 5-core cable. I just wire it in because it's there, so maybe later down the track someone can actually do limit switches LED return if they want. So it's all ready to go in. So basically we can, all intents and purposes, put that through the hole, line up all the holes, grab some screws. I'm from the camera, yes I am. Just loosely nip those up. And we can move forward. Alrighty, get the noisemaker out. Sorry about the vibrations. Alrighty. Let's see in there, you can see if you can see inside. All the wiring is in there. The motor's not too low. It's all good. Spin our gasket round. Put our terminal block on. Alrighty, screw that into there. And this can go off and be put in with the rest of the rotator and aligned. And we can finish this off. There we go, up to that stage. So now we can move forward. I'll go away and we'll put bearings in and top housings on and all the rest of it. Catch-up. Okay, I have now greased the bottom track with molybdenum disulfide. I've greased and installed the bearings in the top track, and I have installed the ring gear. And basically I have done my alignment check, and the next thing is to put the top housing on and put the bottom bearings in and move forward and do a final alignment. We shall catch you in a minute. Okay, we're done. As you can see, just lift him up. I've just finished putting labels and things on it. I've just wired it up to do a quick run with this. I just chucked the mask clamps on as well. As you can see, these are threaded into this one here. I have got lock nuts for these, which goes with it. So that's the rotator. This is the controller. I think I've got another video with this controller being all worked on. It's has been upgraded. The PCB was reconfigured to the later model, because this version PCB and this had extra transistors and had alignment issues, so I went about changing it up a bit. So it's got new feet on it. The display is in really good condition. Now I've got my fingerprints all over it, damn. So yeah, there's the back. So I installed a fuse holder on the outside of this one, because it's normally on the PCB. I've got an earth bolt on here. As you can visually see, I've got a new trim pot inside on the replacement PCB, or not replacement PCB, upgraded PCB I should say. But that should be on any other video. So I just thought I'd get it all here and show you it all working. All these bolts out of the road. So we have the casing, I have all the refurbished stainless steel bolts, screws for it, a clip for it. So let's turn him on. I'm powered up, so there we are, powered up. We'll take him a bit of a drive and show it working. So I've set the clamps to the maximum width, so 63mm is the maximum width of the march clamps. So they can go all the way in and handle 48mm if I remember correctly. So when you take them all in there, you can go to 48mm. Of course the bolts are really long, of course. They'll be screwed all the way in. So there we are, we're headed south. That was quick. So we're just over south there. So that's in overlap. They have 5 degrees overlap, these things. So this is basically a KR400 for all intents and purposes, which Kempro made for Daiwa. So the whole internals have been refurbished and upgraded, as you saw in the first half of this video. We'll stop there. Hear the off-axis motor going clunk clunk as it drops back onto the brake. These motors have always been a bit on the noisy side, and the gears are set up in these things, so it is what it is. So we come around, we've touched down 120 degrees. Righty, we'll take it back to the north, and we shall finish putting the whole thing together. We'll park it up there at north. This one, I'm going to be making a new alignment procedure for these controllers too. This upgraded controller now, you do your adjustment on the east side of south, where the previously the 701 you did it on this side, the way those transistors were set up. So it's been reconfigured, so you do your preset here and then you go all the way around, and then you do your adjustment on the back. So all good skis. So I'll get into that later on, and a little bit and down. I'll take a picture of that there, and we shall catch you in our next adventure or whatever. Catch up.